in order to understand the key elements, I mentioned that there are 10 blocks. But these blocks, I mean, are not just random. I mean, we put a lot of time and research testing different modules, which elements of culture really matter. But most importantly, we identify 3 key sections or elements, no? At the core of the canvas, where it's the heart, you're gonna see exactly what we call the core. This is the thing that, what's the impact that we want to create in the long run? What's the vision for the company, our dream? Where do we want to go? And basically, we want people to align on that. You know, that's something that everyone, regardless of their title, role, department, should be aligned. On the right side of the canvas, we have what we call the emotional culture. No, it's about rituals, how we give feedback, and how safe is our culture for people to experiment, take risks, etc. So in this sense, the emotional culture creates a sense of belonging. No, we become more fearful when we work together. We feel that we're part of the same. I mentioned rituals. You know, the rituals help people belong. How we give feedback, how we elevate and learn from each other. It's part of belonging to that culture. But another element that for me is really critical, and many models that talk about culture miss, is also consider that the culture is not just the values, a purpose is not just the emotions, but also the functional side of it. No, how can we become more agile the way we operate? No, so we include elements like meetings, decision makings, and norms and rules that are really important and define how we operate as a company, or how you operate as a company. So every time you want to map your current culture, if you're going to use this tool, and by the way, you can download it for free, and I'm going to be sharing later a link so you can download also in Arabic, not only the English version if you want. You have to start the core. No, it's like, imagine that you're building a house. You need to build the foundation before you can get and build the different floors and the walls and the windows and so on and so forth. So building on that metaphor, the first element that we need to build, it's what's the purpose, no? The purpose is not just the vision or mission of the company, it's something bigger. Basically, it defines the impact that a company wants to create in the world. The why do we exist? Like Google, for example, their purpose is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So they don't talk about your technology, they don't talk about being number one. I mean, it's about how they want to help the world when it comes to information, making it more easy to access it. The purpose I mentioned is the why. And then when we talk about the core values of any company, those are the how. So the values shape how companies operate and how they do business, and how, especially how they bring that business to life. So for example, this is for Virgin, not just the airline, but the whole Virgin group, the British, but now global group. We think customer, we lead the way, we do the right thing, we are determined to deliver, and together we make the difference. Virgin has a purpose of disrupting different business categories, like mobile, I mentioned airlines, and other spaces where they operate, and this is how they do it. Another thing that's important, culture is about behaviors. So it doesn't matter which values we have if we don't bring them to life. So culture is the behavior you reward and punish. Or in other words, what's going to help you be promoted and build a successful career in any organization, or what could get you in trouble or even fired. No? So Airbnb, they don't accept or tolerate leaders who don't live the mission. So Airbnb is a host and want everyone to be a host. So if you don't live that mission, even if you're a manager, you can get into trouble or even fired. When it comes to Patagonia, purpose, it's about we're in business to save the world, to protect the planet. That means that Patagonia not only says that looks nice, and actually it is, but they also invest a lot of money in campaigns, and actually they support their employees participate in peaceful activist manifestations. And if people get into trouble, Patagonia is willing to pay the bail so people can get out of jail because they were trying to do good to protect the planet. So once you define the core, Then you have to work on mapping, okay, what's our emotional culture? We start at the bottom, right bottom, the block that is about psychological safety. Psychological safety is the belief, basically, that a culture or a group, a team, is safe for people to experiment. It's safe for interpersonal relationships. That means I can speak up my mind. I can be who I am. No, I don't have to try to accommodate so people like me. I can ask questions. I can challenge what people are saying, even what my boss is saying, without getting punished or ignored or anything bad is going to happen. So when it comes to psychological safety, there are many examples, how companies build this. But one that is really effective is creating a mistake-tolerant culture. No, so make it easier for people to experiment, to make mistakes. Like in the case of Tata, the automotive company originally from India, now global, that they reward mistakes because the CEO believes that mistakes are gold mines. Where most companies punish people when they err because they think, you're not doing the right thing, Tata has an award that's called Dare to Try. This award basically recognizes the biggest idea and people that are taking risks and experimenting the most to make sure that the company stays innovative. A second block of the emotional culture, it's feedback. No? And when we talk about feedback, we don't want to capture feedback practices, but basically, how do we build a culture of feedback, regular feedback where people can learn and grow from each other? An interesting practice is usually companies get stuck discussing the past, what happened, rehashing the issues, etc. In the case of Spotify, one thing that's really important is that they know that the most important feedback is about making changes and improve. So they focus on the future, not on what happened. This means that they have this 70-20-10 formula that every time they're giving feedback to each other, 70% of the time is invested in discussing the future. What can we achieve together? How can we get there? What can we do better? 20, it's spent talking about the present issues, and only 10% about the mistakes that we made and what happened in the past. So basically, they're very focused in the future versus rehashing past issues. The last element of the emotional culture is rituals, and rituals are more than just celebrating and having fun with our team members. Rituals are team rituals are really effective to move people into action. So we were working with a client that had an issue that people failed to learn. They couldn't make decisions. They were always talking about making things, but then they scheduled another meeting, and they kept talking, but they never landed in anything. So we create this ritual that we call it on air, that basically imagine like a podcast or a radio show that you see the sign, and when people are recording their life, like we are now, we're here now, you put the light on showing that we are on air. So we create that sign, and basically the team put it, and now they basically adapted to the virtual world as well, that every time they need to make a decision and someone in the team realizes that they're talking too much, that they don't agree on anything, boom, they turn on the on-air button, the light goes on, and then people have to jump into action. Rituals also defines rite of passage. Like for example, in the case of Zappos, the retailer offered people a bonus to quit, which sounds, why should I pay people to quit? But basically, this is a double-edged sword because they're not trying people to quit. This is more about, okay, it's a test. After 6-9 months working with a company, they offer you this bonus, and basically they're trying to push you and test you. Do you really want to stay? Are you really one of us? Are you a customer-centric kind of a person? Do you love the culture, or you better take the money and go find another job? The interesting part of this ritual is that 93 whatever percentage, over 90% of the people say no to the offer. And what does it mean is not only that they stay, but they stay so excited about Amazon because they say no to money, because on their hand, they believe that the culture is so strong. So this reinforces the bonding, and it's kind of a rite of passage that welcomes people and separates the Zapponians from those who are not. So the last part of the canvas is focusing on the functional side, no, of the culture, and that's on the left side of the canvas. We talk about rules, and most companies write a rule or create rules to solve every issue that people face. But truth said is that the more rules you put, the more you harm people. No, rather than getting the best out of them, you tell them you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. So one thing that's important is that have few rules. No, so Nordstrom, which is a high-end retailer, they have this employee handbook that includes only one rule, and it tells people use good judgment in all situations. So it doesn't tell people how to behave, but basically it's telling them not only you should good judge them, but there's a more important message, which is I trust you. I hire you because you are smart, you have a background, you're a great human being, so I trust you as a company. All I'm asking you is please use your good judgment. The norms and rules also are supposed to help bring the values to life. Like in the case of IKEA, they have one value because at here it's a very customer service, very like fixing mentality. And they have this never with your hands empty. And this practice or this norm is about that anyone and everyone in the store, if they see that there's a product missing, something is out of place, something is broken, something is dirty, they should fix it. So what this means is, I don't care if you're the store manager or this is not your area because you work in a different department. So it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that the store is in perfect condition. So that's why people are never with their hands empty. They're always doing things. Another key things, I mean, we spend a lot of time in meetings, but usually we waste time. So what we try to do is how can we define a culture where people get things done in a meeting setting? No? One way is, okay, let's keep meetings short and sweet, like Amazon, that they say they have this 2 pizza meeting approach, which is don't invite people to more people to a meeting that you can feed with 2 pizzas. So that helps Amazon establish how many people they can invite to a meeting. So how many people can eat 2 pizza? Is it 8? Is it 6? So keep it that way. Don't bring more people. So they keep the meetings small and they're more productive. Another practice is also, yeah, we need to have meetings, but also need time to have a break and work and do research and implement what we decided on the previous meeting. Like Asana, the software development company does, that they have a rule that there's no meeting during Wednesdays. So no one, not even the CEO of the company, can schedule a meeting on any Wednesday. So people have that time block to do stuff and not just instead of meeting. The last part of the canvas is about making decisions. So we talk about the functional culture that includes norms, rules, meetings, and decision making. So here is how do we make decisions, no? And people need to be clear. No, we need to align people on how the company makes decisions. For example, Netflix, they have a 2-pronged approach. Regular decisions, they delegate a lot of responsibility. People have full authority. And managers cannot make decisions. And that's really critical because it's very different from most companies. Managers are to provide context, not the solution. They help people if they have questions, if they need background, if they need some history, or they need to understand how their project plays within a bigger scenario. Now, when it comes to larger projects, they assign what they call an informed captain. These guys have full authority, but they are forced or they must consult other people before making the decision. They have to consult people that are going to be influenced or affected by the decision. That doesn't mean that they need to follow their input. No, they just are make sure that you get different perspective before making the call.